Welcome, everyone! In this video, we'll explore how intonation, the melodic pattern of speech, transforms ordinary sentences into powerful tools of communication. Intonation gives language its rhythm and emotion. It turns simple words into expressions of certainty, curiosity, or excitement. We'll focus on the three basic functions of intonation: declarative, interrogative, and exclamatory, and discover how each one changes the listener's interpretation of the same message. Through short dialogues between two speakers, one with a British accent and the other with an American accent, we'll observe how pitch, stress, and rhythm influence meaning across different social and cultural contexts. By the end of this journey, you won't just hear the difference. You'll feel how intonation guides interaction, politeness, and emotion in everyday English communication, revealing that the melody of speech is often as important as the words themselves. Now, let's begin in a modern office meeting room where two colleagues, James and Laura, are discussing a project update.
Good morning, Laura. I've reviewed the proposal and everything seems in order.
Great, James. I've updated the timeline. We'll send the report by Friday afternoon.
Perfect. I'll confirm the figures with the finance team and add them to the final version.
Sounds good. Let's make sure it's polished before submission.
Agreed. I'd rather avoid last-minute surprises. You know how the client loves last-minute, small tweaks.
Oh yes, small tweaks that somehow turn into a whole new proposal. Let's finalize it today so we can breathe by Friday.
Exactly. A calm Friday is a rare luxury in this office.
Then let's make it happen.
Notice how each sentence ends with a gentle fall in pitch. In English, declarative intonation usually drops at the end, signaling certainty, completion, and confidence. James's tone descends slightly on order, while Laura's voice falls smoothly on afternoon. This melodic descent tells the listener the message is final and requires no response. In professional communication, such intonation conveys credibility and composure. It frames information as organized and reliable, creating a sense of closure that helps listeners process and retain what's being said. The falling contour reflects control and precision. It's the sound of statements, not questions. Through this tone, speakers project authority and align melody with the pragmatic goal of reporting facts and confirming tasks. A calm, confident conclusion, like a period at the end of a well-crafted sentence. Now, let's hear the same exchange reframed as questions. Listen for the rising contour that invites interaction and opens the floor for collaboration.
Good morning, Laura. Have you reviewed the proposal?
Yes, I did. Do you think we should update the timeline?
Perhaps. Should we send the report by Friday afternoon?
Maybe. Would that give the finance team enough time?
That's a fair point. Do you think we might need to move the deadline to Monday instead?
We could, but that might overlap with the next project kickoff. What if we check with the finance team before deciding?
Excellent idea. It's always better to ask than assume. I'll drop them a message right after this.
Here, the same words invite interaction rather than simply delivering information. When James asks, "Have you reviewed the proposal?" his voice rises at the end, signaling curiosity and leaving room for dialogue. In English, rising intonation typically marks yes or no questions, indicating that the speaker expects an answer or some form of engagement. The height and shape of that pitch rise communicates subtle shades of meaning. A gentle rise, like the one James uses, sounds polite, attentive, and genuinely interested. A steeper rise, by contrast, might express hesitation, uncertainty, or even mild anxiety. Laura's tone in "Would that give the finance team enough time?" demonstrates this balance perfectly. Her pitch rises softly, conveying collaboration rather than challenge, turning a question into a cooperative gesture. In professional settings, such tonal variation maintains harmony and signals emotional intelligence. Rising intonation here doesn't just mark grammar, it manages relationships, promotes teamwork, and keeps communication open and respectful. Let's imagine a shift in energy, the same exchange, but after a major success, when enthusiasm and relief color every word.
Good morning, Laura. I've reviewed the proposal and everything looks brilliant.
Really? That's fantastic, James. I've updated the timeline. We'll send the report by Friday afternoon.
Excellent. The finance team will be thrilled with this result.
We did it. Let's make sure it's perfect before submission.
Oh, and we actually finished ahead of schedule. That's a first, isn't it?
You're right. I should mark this on the calendar as a miracle. Let's celebrate with coffee after this meeting.
Deal. But you're buying. I paid last time.
Fair enough. I'll even throw in a muffin if we can promise never to see another spreadsheet today.
Tempting offer. Done.
Now, notice how pitch variation and volume express emotion, as the exclamatory tone carries energy and excitement. Laura's voice rises dramatically on fantastic and falls sharply on afternoon, producing the classic high-low contour of exclamative speech that characterizes emotional expression in English. Such intonation patterns serve to emphasize emotion, draw attention, or share enthusiasm, especially in professional contexts, where this tone often appears during celebrations, recognition moments, or motivational interactions. Yet, the same melody can shift its meaning depending on context. If James had said, "Everything looks brilliant," with a flat pitch and slower rhythm, the statement could sound skeptical rather than enthusiastic, illustrating how intonation modifies pragmatic meaning. The line between sincerity and sarcasm, or between enthusiasm and irony, lies entirely in how the voice moves. Now, let's take these same functions to an academic setting, where tone reflects not only information, but also intellectual stance. Imagine James and Laura at a university seminar, discussing a student's research presentation. First, we'll hear a neutral declarative version, followed by interrogative and exclamative reinterpretations that highlight how intonation shapes meaning in formal communication.
The student presented clear data, and the results were consistent with the hypothesis.
Yes, the methodology was solid, and the visuals helped the audience understand the process.
Indeed, I particularly liked how they structured the discussion section, concise and coherent.
Absolutely. And their explanation of limitations was refreshingly honest. It showed critical thinking rather than memorization.
Precisely. That's the mark of an analytical mind.
I agree. It's encouraging to see that kind of maturity in undergraduate work.
This is a classic academic declarative tone. Calm, low-pitched, and precise. Both speakers maintain a steady rhythm and controlled pitch range, signaling objectivity. Declarative intonation here functions as a marker of authority, appropriate for evaluative or descriptive discourse. Now let's hear how this same exchange changes with an interrogative contour.
The student presented clear data, didn't they?
Yes, but do you think the visuals fully supported the argument?
Perhaps not entirely. Should we suggest improving the statistical explanations next time?
That would be helpful. Do you think adding a short discussion on data sources would make it clearer?
Certainly. That could strengthen the validity of their analysis.
With rising tones, their speech invites collaboration and encourages shared reflection. The intonation pattern transforms the tone from simple reporting to reflective inquiry, suggesting that knowledge is built through dialogue rather than mere transmission. This rising melody communicates openness, curiosity, and intellectual engagement, qualities that are typical in academic discussion, where questioning represents a path toward deeper understanding and critical analysis. Such intonation not only invites a response, but also models a respectful exchange of ideas. Now, listen to the exclamatory version, more expressive, evaluative, and filled with the emotional nuance that often accompanies insight or discovery.
The student presented clear data. What an impressive performance.
Absolutely. The visuals were stunning, and the clarity was remarkable.
And their conclusion tied everything together beautifully, concise, logical, and persuasive.
I know. The writing style was clear and confident, showing genuine understanding of the topic.
Quite so. It's rare to see such maturity and critical thinking at this level. Truly outstanding work.
Totally agree. If more academic papers showed this level of structure and coherence, research writing would be a joy to read.
Here, the speakers' voices rise sharply and fall with emphasis, reflecting admiration, engagement, and a sense of evaluation. The intonation contour not only adds emotional color, but also defines the speaker's stance, transforming factual observation into personal interpretation. In this way, tone bridges the space between analysis and appreciation, turning information into meaning. This demonstrates one of the most powerful roles of intonation: expressing emotion, intent, and attitude without altering the words themselves. Each intonational choice sends a different social signal, sometimes conveying authority, sometimes empathy, and at other times collaboration. The same sentence, depending on its melody, can sound assertive, inviting, or warm. This subtle interplay between tone and context reveals how intonation functions as a social code, shaping how listeners perceive confidence, respect, or proximity. Understanding these subtleties allows speakers to adapt strategically, ensuring not only that their message is understood, but that it also resonates emotionally with their audience. Beyond the emotional layer, intonation plays a key role in pragmatic interpretation, how we infer intention beyond literal meaning. For instance, the sentence, "You're coming to the meeting," can communicate very different things depending on its pitch movement. With falling intonation, it becomes a statement of fact, a confirmation. With rising intonation, it turns into a question, suggesting doubt or a need for confirmation. And with a rise-fall contour, it might sound persuasive, playful, or even ironic, depending on the placement of stress and the surrounding context. These shifts illustrate how melody and rhythm carry the emotional truth of speech. In daily communication, they soften commands, reveal irony, or express sincerity. Consider how a phrase like, "That's great," can mean genuine joy or subtle sarcasm. What makes the difference is not the word itself, but the intonational contour that accompanies it. Through this melody, the voice becomes an instrument of meaning, capable of transforming identical sentences into distinct emotional experiences. Stepping back, it becomes clear that intonation is far more than a detail of pronunciation. It is the essence of spoken expression. It guides how listeners interpret intention, feel emotion, and evaluate sincerity or politeness. For learners of English, mastering intonation is often more complex than mastering grammar or vocabulary, because it requires not just accuracy, but awareness, listening, and emotional intelligence. A single sentence can sound neutral, curious, or enthusiastic simply by changing its melodic curve. In practice, developing intonational competence means learning to use melody with purpose, to convey confidence through declarative tones, openness through interrogative rises, and empathy or enthusiasm through exclamatory contours. The goal is not to sound like a native speaker, but to communicate with clarity, authenticity, and effectiveness, choosing the appropriate tone for each situation. Throughout this journey, we've seen how intonation breathes life into language. The declarative pattern closes ideas with certainty. The interrogative opens dialogue, and the exclamatory injects emotion and dynamism. But beyond these functions, intonation acts as a bridge between language and feeling, connecting structure with emotion, logic with human connection. In every context, a meeting, a classroom, or a casual conversation, your tone of voice communicates as much as your words. Mastering intonation empowers you to connect, adapt, and persuade across different audiences and cultures. So next time you speak, listen not only to what you say, but to how you say it. Because in the melody of speech lies the true meaning of communication. The music of English. Thank you very much for your attention. See you next time.